Sweet. All right. Welcome everyone to our monthly Urban Ecology Collaborative meeting for July of 2026. The Urban Ecology Collaborative is a group of groups. We're focused in the New England and Mid-Atlantic regions. We meet virtually on the third Wednesday of each month. Um, and we talk about urban forestry and other related topics. And we really like to share about upcoming events, research jobs in the forum, and have folks present on topics related to urban forestry in these monthly meetings. So today we have a great presentation. Can't wait for you all to hear it. First, I did wanted to just open up the floor for anyone who might have some community announcements. If you want to throw anything in the chat, feel free, or feel free to unmute or raise your hand. But wanted to give a little bit of space in case anyone had anything to tell the group. And if not, no worries, but feel free to use the chat too. Okay, no worries. I did see Becky had sent some cool resources from American Forests earlier this week, so I was definitely taking a look at those in Boston. But yeah, if anything comes up, feel free to use the chat. Otherwise, we will go ahead and get started. So today we're really excited to welcome Tyrah Cobb-Davis. Tyrah is the outreach manager at Baltimore Tree Trust, where she engages residents, local leaders, and community groups across Baltimore City neighborhoods to share how transformative trees can be within their respective communities. Through various outreach efforts, she works to ensure that all communities, especially those in historically underserved areas, have a voice in shaping a healthier, greener city. She earned an environmental science BS from Randolph College and is passionate about connecting communities to the environment. So welcome, Tyrah, and I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to share a little bit more about our work in Baltimore at BTT. And I'll go ahead and get started. So I've titled this Cultivating Community, Bringing Residents into the Urban Forest. And what I will do today is share a little bit more about our process at BTT from kind of inception of a thought of where a tree can be planted through the planting implementation, highlighting successful strategies that we've had, and then use some specific examples of community engagement that have worked really well for us. So what is Baltimore Tree Trust? We're a nonprofit organization on a mission to grow and protect Baltimore City's urban forests through increased tree planting, community engagement, and stewardship of city trees. This image on the left-hand side just gives a snapshot of the impact that we have had across the city over the years. It is missing some data points. I should probably update that, but I like this image, even though it may be missing a couple planting seasons, just because it shows the span across the city in which we work. Sorry, I'm trying to change something on the screen. Okay, perfect. So BTT has been around since 2008. And we, in addition to planting trees, we are also building a local workforce to protect Baltimore's urban forests in order to plant a greener, healthier city for all of our neighborhoods. We love the tagline for Baltimore by Baltimore. And these are just a few images of our team members throughout the years. So our why, I feel like when we have opportunities to engage with communities, I like to start about like just why are we doing the work? Because in my many conversations, it's interesting that sometimes people feel attacked. Maybe you all have experienced that in your work as well, or people are just uncertain, like, why me? Like, why are you wanting to do this on my block within my community? So I like to just explain that while we are a local organization planting trees, it's a part of a bigger picture. So the city of Baltimore has a tree canopy goal of achieving 40% by 2037, which is a pretty common goal, I would say, for urban areas. And also in Maryland, we have the 5 Million Trees Initiative, where 500,000 of those trees are allocated to be planted in urban environments. And then simply just providing an opportunity for everyone to have access to trees, especially because not everybody was brought into that fold, into those conversations in previous times. So I want to go through our process a little bit, and then I will end with some of our community engagement strategies and some just different events and various things that we've done in order to engage communities. So prior to trees being planted, of course, it starts with site assessment. Um, and that is either residents coming to us indicating that they're interested in bringing trees to their communities, or our team going out and identifying locations as kind of a starting point, a starting to start that conversation of like, hey, we noticed that there are a few blocks within your communities that have the space to accommodate trees. Would you be interested? We find that having that like both approaches is pretty helpful, because sometimes people aren't even aware of the amount of space, maybe in that public right-of-way space, that a tree can fit. And I will note that BTT, we plant primarily in neighborhoods within that public right-of-way space. So as mentioned, we find success in both sharing plantable sites with communities and also creating the space for people to share where they would want to see trees within their community and go from there. After locations are determined or selected, we then start our outreach process, which is definitely an ongoing conversation. I included some screenshots of some of the materials that we've used in the past that have worked really well for us. So it includes our mailer. So everyone who lives in a space that could have a tree planted in front of their home receives a mailer. And then our team follows up with multiple rounds of canvassing and leaving behind door hangers. Uh, One of the door hangers that we have has just a few benefits that we like to talk about, such as fresh air, clean water, cooler streets, and beautiful blocks. And we've got a tree for that. So that's just a snapshot of some of the materials that we use. Once a tree has been planted, we also follow up with a different flyer, because I think the beautiful thing about doing tree planting work in Baltimore is that we are just one of many tree planting groups. So it's a way for us to take ownership of a tree that had been planted, and then it gives the tree recipient just more information on how to contact us should they have any questions. Because I feel like because there's so many people, it can be kind of difficult for people to even know who to contact, whether that's the city, BTT, or other nonprofits or community association groups. I included this GIS just snapshot because I feel like everything is so integrated into our mapping system. So once locations are identified, essentially points are populated on the map. And then when the outreach team comes through, and I'm noticing that this is a little bit large for the screen, so you can't see everything. Oh, I can scroll down. The colors are just helpful for our team. I thought it would be fun to include, but The light purple just indicates a vacant spot where a tree can be planted. The pink, or I guess the purple and pink are kind of similar in color, sorry about that, but indicates stumps. And then we also have opportunities to cut concrete as well. So that's just a visual snapshot of us knowing what type of work needs to be done in that space, and also what type of outreach materials we may need. And so once we conduct our outreach, as we're having conversations with residents, our points in our GIS change colors. Red indicates like do not plant, they're not interested in having a tree there. Yellow is they're kind of undecided. So prior to our crews going into the neighborhood, there might be additional efforts to share more information about trees and answer any questions or anything that I might have that might be the deciding factor of if they want that tree planted or not. And then our green is, or the lighter green is they approved that location, and others were just indicating areas in which we've left flyers. So I thought that was neat to share here. And then when we're not out within the communities doing canvassing, we like to go to a lot of community meetings, community events. We find that that has been pretty successful for us. If we are invited, it creates an opportunity not for us to not only to be in communication with community association leadership, but others within the community as well. And it creates an opportunity to just hear people's stories, relationship to trees. I think it's really interesting, of course, to note there's some people who really want trees, they know the benefits and all that great stuff. And then there's people who know the benefits of trees, but they have maybe a history of trees just haven't treated them very nicely, whether that's falling onto their cars or homes or having like a traumatic experience in that way. But I think that it's just nice to know kind of the different perspectives of why people are either for or against tree plantings within their communities. And then we meet people where they are. So we've tabled at very unique places, whether that's the farmers markets, going to community events or things like that. But just finding opportunities to share more and more about tree planting efforts. So sometimes we have to create the sites in order to plant a tree, which is pretty neat that we have the ability to both not grind concrete, you grind stumps and you cut concrete. I've included some of our materials here as well, just as a snapshot of some of the information that we are providing to residents. I think people are usually pretty excited that we can fill that gap of removing the stumps because sometimes the city is able to take down dead and dying trees, but they just get it down to the stump. And that's a pretty expensive thing to get rid of, especially a resident, that's not something that they've likely budgeted for. And if you ask for a tree to remove, oftentimes you expect the whole thing to be removed and not a stump that's left there for years to come. So in our outreach efforts, when we talk about the ability to remove stumps, people are usually super ecstatic about that, super, super happy because they recognize that it's a need within their community. If it's just in their block, in their neighborhood, or even right in front of their home, they know that it's something that it's an eyesore, they want to get rid of it. And a lot of times we can follow up that stump removal with planting another tree. We can also cut concrete, which I think is pretty unique, especially because some neighborhoods that we plant do not have the grassy strips or a lot of concrete cutouts for trees to be planted. So that's already pretty limiting in who is able to receive a tree. But when we're able to cut the concrete, it just opens up that opportunity to more and more people. After all that, eventually trees are in the ground. We have a team of our crew members who are part of our Career Pathways program, which is a pretty unique aspect of Baltimore Tree Trust because it creates opportunities for people to gain experience in the greening in urban forestry field. The trees that we're planting are native trees, of course. They're 1 to 2 inches in caliper. And that's a pretty, um, I guess, nice thing, especially for residents, of course, because they see that, well, I feel like a tree, regardless of how big or small it is, it does make that instant impact. But as they're planting trees of this size, they're like, whoa, like you've already transformed the space and the trees haven't even been in the ground all that long. This is an example, pretty similar. Oops. I did something on my screen. Okay. Pretty similar to kind of the proposed planting map that comes after assessment. But after trees are planted, we then follow up with communities to share the species that were planted and just a little bit more. And I often follow this up with a list of addresses as well, because I know that it can be pretty difficult to view a static map, but it just gives an idea of where the trees have been planted in the impact that has been made. So of course, planting a tree, um, I wouldn't say it's the easy part, but the maintenance and getting that tree established is takes a lot of time and dedication. So our team does care for trees as well. That looks like watering, mulching, structural pruning if needed. But engagement is what I'm here to share a little bit more about today. But I thought it was important to walk through some of the various aspects of our process that we do at BTT. So we find unique ways to engage communities, and I'd be curious to hear what have worked with you all in your work. But we find that just bringing community members together for something as simple as a tree walk is pretty exciting. It gives people the opportunity to maybe explore a space that they maybe have recreated in the past, but not through the lens of tree planting, like we sometimes have those blinders. Last summer, we had an opportunity to do programming at a local park in Baltimore, Druid Hill Park. And it was so neat to see people come with their families and just their friends and things like that. And we walked around, discussed a few of the tree species that are common in the park, but also common if they were just, walking around and exploring in the city. We had an opportunity to like measure the tree. I think it was just a really neat way to have people engage with trees, not just new tree plantings, but also trees that are already in existence in their nearby community. As mentioned before, we go to a lot of tabling events. We have partnered with many local organizations. We've attended various fall festivals, tabling at restaurants, tabling in the middle of the Patagonia store, just really finding unique ways to share more about urban tree planting efforts generally, specific to Baltimore, and how to just bridge that gap and share more about the benefits and all the great things that can come from, of course, increasing that urban tree canopy. Another way that we engage community is through volunteer plantings. I feel like that is something that is a really neat way to bring people into that fold. I feel like when people are involved in the process, sometimes they take not necessarily pride, but it's like, oh, like I see the work that you do in and out, and I've only been here for however many times you've volunteered. Because we have a dedicated team of crew members, We try to do volunteer plantings a few times a year, but we're really lucky to have a team of, I believe, 16 urban foresters on our staff that are able to go and plant and maintain the trees that we plant. Something that we are going to shift to a little bit more is planting trees, of course, um, is great, but having people have more of a say in the species being planted, I would say opens that conversation up a little bit more. It's deepened connections and engagement, and people sometimes, in my experience, they're for trees, but if they don't have the opportunity to select the species, they might be a little bit hesitant. So usually in our plantings, and I should have shared probably a long time ago, but BTT is planting upwards of 2,000 trees a year across primarily neighborhoods, but we also do some green space and park plantings and school plantings as well. But our neighborhood plantings are where we're planting the majority of our trees. And planting at that scale, we're not always able to accommodate like specific requests. We can sometimes, but we're trying to introduce these various models that are smaller scaled just to see how that deepened engagement will look and things like that. The first effort of us doing this was the spring of 2025. There was a pretty dedicated greening committee from a neighborhood association who had reached out to the Baltimore Tree Trust team because he just knew that there was space within his community to plant trees. This particular area, I think, was unique in that the people who wanted trees the most lived on blocks that didn't have tree lawns, like there were no grassy strips, and there wasn't a lot of concrete removal opportunities either. So some people only had their front yards to plant trees in. So through this effort, we engaged 20 plus residents. 13 trees were planted, but this was the first time that we were able to really provide specific species, meet with residents on site, determine the best location in their yards for their trees, and then also have people have more of a say and more agency in the trees that were being planted near their homes. And that was pretty successful in just like learning about how that would something like this would work for us. And so this some of the materials that were shared. So we offered a variety, I would say. We had an oak and a hornbeam and a redbud. And this is kind of the starting point from where we're hoping to go as an organization. So this fall planting season, we're actually launching a little bit, it's pretty similar, but our community forestry model. And we're working with two neighborhoods, the Pimlico Terrace community and the Park Circle communities in Baltimore. And across those two communities, we're going to plant 50 trees. Again, like the previous example, that particular neighborhood was Lake Walker. I probably should have included that, sorry. But these residents are also going to have a say in the species that they can choose from. And we're going to open it up to front yards and public right-of-way plantings as well. So we know that just giving people more options, I think, is just another way to bring people into the fold because they have more of a say, more agency, and it's not just another community showing up and doing work. If there's like deep engagement, we do have a lot of touch points with residents, whether that's through the assessment process, the multiple rounds of outreach and planting and maintenance. So each like location is getting at least I would say 5+ touch points from BTT staff members, but this is just going to be another way for people to hear a little bit more and be more involved and engaged in that process. We also work with student groups as well. So a lot of times when we have school plantings, depending on the project and scope of the work, there's sometimes opportunities to engage students with classroom lessons, or we do a lot of art activities, whether that's like leaf rubbings. If you're looking for an activity, collecting like toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls, and then making little paper cutouts and having people just color the paper cutout, and then you just stick it right on the top, and boom, you have a little tree. Also, you can do a lot of things with tissue paper and paper bags, which you can see at the bottom here. It's another activity that we had to just create some trees. I would say children and adults alike love a little arts and craft activity. Um, when we're planting at school properties, a lot of times the students are able to come out and either shadow our crew members or work alongside our crew to plant trees on their school property. Another way that we bring people into the fold is through like training opportunities, and whether that's work days or pruning opportunities with corporate groups, or we do a lot of school plantings. So there have been moments where our team has been able to work really closely with Baltimore City Public Schools landscaping team. I'm not entirely sure what that office or what they're called, but working really closely because a lot of times, like they're just cutting the grass, not to minimize their work, but if there's a tree, not everybody has like, you know, the knowledge to protect these young trees. So we get together with some of the landscape and like grounds maintenance crews to learn how to protect the young trees that were planted. And another way that we bring people into the space is we have two nurseries. So we have a few like we have had a few nursery activations. So while they're not super specific, I would say, to tree plantings, they're activities being hosted where all of our trees are being held. And so we've had just various workshops that I think have been pretty exciting, especially because in urban spaces, maybe people don't have the space for trees, but they might be interested in container gardening or like other forms of gardening and greening. So it's been pretty neat that our team has been able to provide some of those opportunities as well. And that's all I had. Just I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit more about Baltimore Tree Trust, the work that we do, our process, and some of the specific, while they can be simple activities, but they've been pretty transformative in our work and allows us, to get in front of as many people and share opportunities about tree planting efforts. Um, just a little bit more information of who our work is supported by. And I would leave with my information on the screen. You can feel free to shoot me an email if you'd like to stay in touch. I'm happy to go into greater detail or share any of our materials with you if interested. We also have, ooh, I think I adjusted the screen. Um, this QR code would take you to our link tree. With you can follow up with more information there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tyra. That was awesome. We had a couple questions in the chat. There's one from Lori. What message has been crafted for folks who are concerned that the tree will crack or lift their sidewalk?
Yeah, really great question. Something that we talk about all the time. I would say that at BTT, we work really closely with local government, so like city forestry and other agencies. And we, wait, let me reread the question. Sorry. Great. Okay, so we do recognize, of course, that a mature tree can cause these issues. The message that we often share is that it's likely not to happen in recent or like in years to come. This is a problem that um, might arise in the future. But yeah, that's a tricky one. But I lost my train of thought, but it came back to me. I was going to say we work super closely with city agencies that will like address those issues. So the sidewalk is like a Department of Transportation issue. So we just encourage folks to submit those inquiries and maintenance requests to the appropriate agencies that could help them in that. But I would say our messaging primarily is like, we do understand that this could be an issue, but the tree is so young right now, the likelihood that it will happen in a certain time frame is not likely.
Well, yeah, and it's awesome that you all have that relationship with city departments too. Um, there was another question from Jacqueline. Is all your maintenance done in-house or do you coordinate any volunteer maintenance?
Also, a really good question. I should have spoke a little bit more on our like urban forestry pathways program. So we have a dedicated crew of about I think when I counted last, there were 16 crew members that do our planting and our maintenance. We're starting to branch out into more like volunteer events, but recently they've been more supporting planting efforts, not necessarily maintenance. So primarily in-house.
Awesome. Were there any other questions that folks had? Feel free to raise your hand or unmute. Um, I see one from Phil here. So great, you can offer choices to residents to gain some ownership. Have you attempted to offer free trees for planting on their own property if space is available?
Yes, also a really good question. So in our nursery, we have been able to grow some trees from seed. So at our various tabling events, we've recently have had multiple tree giveaways. And so in that, through those efforts, people are, they have the ability to plant that tree wherever they are most interested in doing that.
Sign any sort of care agreement and or any address concerns that they could cut it down before maturity.
So there is a care agreement in the program that we are launching in the fall, our community forestry model. We are going to provide gator bags and also either a hose, a 5-gallon bucket, or a watering can to kind of assist and bridge that gap of watering materials. Um, in terms of the tree being cut down before maturity, I'm not actually sure if that has been addressed, but that's a really good point that I will be sure to pass along to the team. Um, yes.
Cool. That's really cool. I had a question about the private land tree planting too, just because that's our kind of focus in Boston with our program, and I'm curious, just sort of how do you find the space like on residential land or private land? Like, do you find that folks are leaning towards certain species, or is there only room, or do you have a like sort of a one species that's often selected, or like small ornamental trees, as opposed to like shade trees? Do you have any issues with like soil quality or like prepping spaces on private land? I guess kind of how does that look like for you all?
Okay, so to address the species being offered, we've only ever done the private property once, and looking to do it a little bit more in the fall. I think we're still in the process of figuring out the species that are being offered, because we have not yet completed that assessment. So of course, the assessment of the space will kind of drive what species will do well in those areas. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, yeah. And it looks like there's another question from Phil. Do you talk with home renters versus home owners, and can you collect testimonials from residents on their feelings about the new trees?
Absolutely. So I think in our various like outreach efforts, whether we're at tabling events or canvassing, those testimonials just kind of come through naturally. I do make note of them just because I think it's really interesting to see. My favorite testimonials are when we're going and doing our door knocking and canvassing. Some people are very adamant that they don't want to have a tree planted. The way that we do our program is that we think of it at the resident scale. Sometimes people will indicate that they don't have the ability to make a choice about whether or not a tree is planted in front of their home because they are just a renter. Sometimes we remind them that, like we do understand that, and we definitely respect that decision, but a reminder that that is public property. Sometimes that changes people's minds and perspectives. Other times they're still like, oh, but my homeowner may not be interested, and we're definitely okay either way. But we don't necessarily distinguish between a renter or a homeowner, especially because sometimes the homeowners are so far removed from what is going on within the communities in which they have their properties that they're renting out. Um, but yeah, the test back to the testimonials. Sometimes people are like, I don't want a tree. And then because we do it at the resident scale, like if you say no, but your next door neighbor says yes, your neighbor will get a tree. And sometimes that's like multiple trees planted on a block or not. And then we'll get calls and they're like, actually, like, I'm so sorry I told you no. Like I see that you're not attacking me, like you're not out to get me. This is a good service that you're doing. And then they want a tree in the end. So my favorite testimonials are the ones where people change their minds.
It's super cool. I had another question. I'm really interested in like the stump grinding and the concrete cutting. I think that's super cool. And I was curious, like who's kind of doing that work in terms of like, is that part of your pathway or career pathway programs? And then also like just generally, how has the sort of relationship been with the city of Baltimore in terms of like getting all of like the proper like permits or whatever you need to actually be able to do that kind of work too?
Yes. So a part of our crew, they're called neighborhood foresters. And then with that, there's various levels, like level one, two, and three. And then we have a site preparation team. I can't recall at what level people are like eligible to move over to site prep. But all of that is done in-house with our team of urban foresters. In terms of the relationship that we have with the city. Baltimore Tree Trust is under what I call an umbrella organization, Tree Baltimore. And under Tree Baltimore, that's an effort through the Baltimore City's Rec and Parks. And then with under that is the Department of Forestry. And it's like their effort. And I feel like um, there's so many tree planting partners that are in that partnership. I'll go ahead and drop a link just because I think it's really interesting. Um, and so I think through that partnership, of course, there's different like I'm not I will say I'm like familiar with it, but I'm not the one submitting the permits and stuff, so I don't want to speak incorrectly on that. I know that especially for concrete cutting, there's a very involved like um process. Like this forestry has to approve that that location can become a tree. And then the Department of Transportation is also involved to make sure that if we cut concrete, that what's left is still like ADA accessible. I don't think that truly answered your question, but I'm not as familiar with that permitting in the specifics there. I do know that we do have permission to plant in the public right of way. I think it's because of the scale at which we're planting. Of course, we always encourage individual residents, if they're interested in planting in the public right of way space, to get the proper like permissions and things like that. But I think that we have like special permissions and approvals in that way.
Yeah, that's super cool. It's really interesting to hear about. We had another question from Jacqueline. Are these crews full time? And are you able to keep the site prep team active slash paid year round, or is it more project based? And if you're able to share like what the hourly wage is for people on that crew, or maybe follow up after, but sounds like interested in sort of the structure of these crews.
Yes, I'm looking up the pay because I think the crew here, let me look. Um, the crew members start at 18 an hour, between 18 and 18.50. And I think that having a driver's license kind of determines where in that pay range you are. In terms of our crews full time? Yes, our crews are full time, work year round. When we're not planting trees in the spring, in the fall months, our crews are activated in the summer for tree care and maintenance. Our crews also have access to benefits, 401k, retirement, all that great stuff as well. Our site prep is also year round. It is project based in the sense, but I feel like and I'm sure all of us are in our organizations, we're always planning for that next planting season. So while they might not be actively like cutting concrete or grinding stumps right now, they're activated in a different way through the summer months until some of those permits and in locations and projects start back up.
Cool.
And do we connect with utilities to get an idea? Um, Sometimes, yes. Sometimes I feel like projects may be on the radar of the city, and because we have to go through the city in order to, um, uh, you know, the city is usually aware of the neighborhoods that are kind of on our radar. And so they can tell us what they know and vice versa. Sometimes I feel like these like improvement projects just come up out of nowhere sometimes, and not everything is as well documented as we would like them to be. But yes, we usually do have an idea of what's going on. And if we're not working directly with utility companies to figure that out, when we're within the community, either assessing or doing outreach, we can see visually what's going on.
I had kind of like a more data related question. I'm not sure if you would know, but sort of like in that 2 years of follow up after a tree is planted, do you know like kind of how do you have like inspections that are done, or do you have data on, or I'm not sure how long what are the oldest trees that have been planted too, but it's always interesting to me sort of like the follow up around like with that many trees planted a year, do you have data on like kind of what's happening to them over time?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that our data is primarily within like once it was planted and 2 years after that. Our agreement with the city is that we'll plant the trees, and it's the same for planting partners in Baltimore as well. But we plant the trees, care for them for 2 years to get established, and then we share all of our data points to the city of Baltimore, and it becomes a part of their inventory. So their team of urban foresters are going out and caring for assessing. So I would say that on our end, I would say our data is pretty well kept up until the point of passing it along to the next person responsible.
Yeah, there's just one more question about your watering protocol, if you happen to know that, and how many gallons a week, and is there a certain amount of rainfall that replaces watering
So
trees?
I would love to follow up with you about that, Jacqueline. It's like I'm aware of what's going on, but I don't want to misspeak on the details. But I would be happy to like follow up with our tree care manager and provide those specific information. All really good questions. Thank you all.
Yeah, lots of good questions. And it sounded like for on like private or residential land, do you also leave homeowners with resources on like how much to water their trees and stuff like that too? Um,
Yes, we do.
yeah,
And um, I would love to connect if anybody is currently like doing that, how often or like how you're sharing that information. The group that we planted spring of 2025, I have just a Google email list for them. And I occasionally will be like, hey, just checking in to see how your tree is doing, or providing little like information that way. I'm like, hey, we've been in a drought, just making sure you're still giving your trees some watering touches, or, providing links of where they can go to check the rainfall accumulations in their area to see how that would, influence and alter the amount of water that that tree has received.
yeah, a lot of really good questions. Just gonna give folks another minute if anyone wants to throw any other questions in the chat or raise your hand, or Tyra just put her email in the chat too. It sounds like it's okay if folks reach out to you with anything,
Yeah,
any
absolutely.
follow-ups. Cool, cool. Um, Sweet. Well, we'll give folks 10 minutes. Oh, we got one more question from Phil. What do you see as best use of your time in getting support for your program?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, do you want to provide some more specifics on that one? Or I guess sort of which part of the program or which program?
Sure. Hi, Tyra. Great to see you. Um, I love that background. Is that really Baltimore? Wow.
No,
Um,
I Googled and I said Zoom
yeah,
background.
yeah. I was thinking in terms of yeah, the best use of your time, the most what gives you the greatest impact or sense of accomplishment as you attempt to gain support from residents? Is it events? Is it door to door? Um, because events are real time consumers, right? But maybe there's things you do or your staff does on the ground that really is the best use of time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for elaborating there. I unfortunately am gonna have to say it depends on the neighborhood that we are engaging in those moments. We have had really good success. With events, but then also some events are flops, It's like we thought that this would be a really good way to engage with a lot of people, but maybe over a span of 3 hours, 4 hours, we've only talked to less than 20 people, Those conversations were great, but it didn't yield as much as maybe we were hoping. I would say in my experience, I really enjoyed the door to door because if people answer the door for you and don't slam it in your face, there's a really unique opportunity to talk to people in the moment and answer any questions. Or I think that flyering has been really beneficial for us, but I think having that face to face is really powerful because then when they follow up, they know that there was a real person on the other side. Um, and I would say, as we are thinking of various engagement events and doing things, like, of course, our work is primarily like tree planting and urban forestry, but in our various tree giveaways or arts activities, it's like creating a space that people like come to and feel comfortable to then maybe ask those other questions. So I would say it's like a mixed model approach.
Yeah, and do you use neighborhood residents that are out with you on, do they knock on doors or do you as the trust?
Yeah, so our team primarily does it. If there's an opportunity for us to partner with community association groups or neighborhoods in that way, we're definitely open to that. Um, Especially because it's like, people will listen to me, but they will listen to their neighbor even more. So that has been an approach that we have used in the past. We've also done some door knocking with city council members before. Like, if people are interested, like, the more the merrier.
Great.
And I think there's been a opportunity for people like the one, I would say the reason why our first like private property effort was successful is because there was a very dedicated community leader that came to us and provided us like, here are a list of neighborhoods that, or not, it's one neighborhood. Here are a list of my neighbors. I've already door knocked. They're interested in a tree. They would want it in their front yard. So I feel like every community is engaged at a different level. That was amazing. Hoping to find more involved and very empowered community leaders in that way as well.
Right. Thank you.
Awesome. A lot of really great conversation. I think that's all the questions we have. I know we still got a few minutes, but um, folks can feel free to reach out and then follow up with you if they have any others. Just want to say thank you so much for presenting today and for sharing all your wisdom and just really, really amazing work going on. And I think just such a great opportunity to share sort of between cities and programs, what's happening. So thank you so much, Tyra. We really appreciate it. And for everyone, we'll see you all next month at the next UEC meeting, third Wednesday of August. And hope you have a great rest of your day and stay cool, please. Thanks so much, Tyra.
Yes, thanks so much for the opportunity. Happy to keep the conversation going. And I really appreciated all of the questions.
Have a good one, everyone.